And hello and welcome to this webinar from Outdoor Arts UK. And it's really nice to have all of you here. Just having a few more in. If you're joining us, do, as I say, pop your name in the chat box and we can say hello to everybody. Great. So this is the first of two webinars that we at Outdoor Arts UK are running in obviously response to the current circumstances that we all find ourselves in across the cultural sector. And one of the things we do at Outdoor Arts UK, we've been hosting quite a lot of one-to-one sessions with myself and members of the OA UK board, who are all people who work within the outdoor arts sector. And I was getting a lot of people coming in from who didn't necessarily have experience of working outdoors, and were asking for some of the kind of basic advice of how to work in outdoor environments, and some of the things that we had learned through years of experience, or some of the stuff that we had learned in recent times due to responding to COVID-19, and also ongoing, and you'll forgive me, quite confusing government advice about what we can and can't do, and that extraordinary moment when suddenly outdoor performance was permissible. And weirdly, the Minack and Glyndebourne were suddenly cited as being the two places that would definitely be going ahead. Lord love them, and I believe they have. And indeed, one of our members was one of the first people to perform at the Minack. We managed to enjoy the live stream there. There's been a lot of imaginative approaches to this, as I would expect from people who work in the sector. So just a little bit by way of introduction and what we're doing. Now, this is where I screen share, and let's just make sure we've got it right first. I'm going to press that on play. No, that doesn't work. Okay. Lordy. 1 second. There we go. And here we go for a. Oh. There we are. So there we are. It's a logo. Amazing. There we go. So Outdoor Arts UK is a membership organisation, and under normal circumstances we are a paid membership organisation, but since the advent of COVID-19 we have stopped collecting subscriptions because it really didn't feel the time to be chasing people for money. So we've sort of opened ourselves up to be a more general organisation, and we do all of our business through our general mailing list rather than our members mailing list. But at close of that play we had 305 members, and they include festivals, they include artists, they include producers, they include makers, production managers, agencies, a wide variety of people who work in the outdoor arts sector. I'm Angus, and I am the executive director of the organisation, and I've been with the organisation for just over 5 years. And what I use, this is a little run-up of what we're going to do today. For those of you who may notice, Sarah from Creative Barking and Dagenham CPP is unable to join us, so that actually just gives us a little bit more room to breathe when we can talk about CPPs and questions. That's the rough running order of what we'll be up to. So I used to be the producer of this festival at the National Theatre, which was called Watch This Space Festival, and it ran for about 15 years, about 10 of which were under my guidance. And it's where I, in that very exposed environment, learned everything I knew about working outdoors, having worked indoors at the National Theatre for another 10 years prior to that. And I had the privilege of programming it during the Olympics. That was when the torch came through London. We set the building on fire, which was a great relief to a lot of people. And as a former employee, I was very pleased to see the building lit up red as part of the We Make Events campaign, where many cultural buildings organisations lit themselves up in solidarity for that. So Outdoor Arts, just a quick reminder of who we are, what we are. Outdoor Arts refers to performance in the public realm, and this takes many, many different forms. But public art, outdoor art, street art, there are many different definitions. We kind of don't really include graffiti and that kind of street art in our world, but there are installations, there are light displays, there are pyrotechnics. There's a lot of international work that comes through. There are lots of community projects. There is a lot of circus. There's a hell of a lot of circus in outdoor arts. A lot of indoor companies also produce outdoor work, particularly circus and dance companies. There's a lot of street acts. There are buskers. There are people who have been touring with small shows for many, many years. They include greenfield festivals. This is not surprisingly the Green Man Festival. Some of them have a stronger element of what I would say is performance rather than simply just music. But it obviously varies. It depends which way the festival goes. There's obviously carnivals, which are a very strong part of the outdoor world, and processional events, which include Manchester Day, for example, is a particularly big one. There's the Mellors, which take place often in parks across the country and have a particular regional focus. This is drag storytelling. This is walkabout acts. Walkabout acts often the backbone of a lot of our sector. There's a lot of participatory work. This is a piece by Cirque Bijou, where wherever they go, people take hold of these umbrellas. This is a kind of installation piece. This is a piece that was at Greenwich and Docklands. That's the Cutty Sark. And all of those names you can see lit up on the floor are people who were on the first Windrush. It was a piece that was done last year to mark that. And you could watch it from standing on top of the boat. And it was very simple and very moving. There's a lot of very creative work. This is Gobbledygook Theatre's show where you're listening to sounds in the ground. A lot of fire gardens and fire displays. This is Walk the Planks Fire Garden that will be seeing itself coming back at Greenwich very soon. A little bit on audiences. This is the audience agency report, the most recent one on outdoor arts audiences. And just a few slides for a few key facts about who they are in normal circumstances. It has a particularly young demographic, and we have a very strong social requirement of people going to these events. They like to come in groups, they like to come in families. So it's very much the social drives the attendance as much as the actual shows. We have good regular attendees who come back and see work on a regular basis. And one of the kind of key findings is that the outdoor arts audiences represent the general population more broadly or more directly than any other part of any other art form in the cultural sector. And that's a really important bit. To be frank, if we were doing outside and we didn't have that statistic, we'd be getting it horribly wrong. They're a young audience, they're a diverse audience. Here's some stuff on the social. We have 61% call themselves repeat visitors, which is very pleasing to see. And here, 80% are families moved by social interaction. And here we have, so I've lost the statistic there. Can I go back? Where is it? There's one that makes me laugh somewhere, and I've lost it. Oh yeah, don't you love that? That London is the lowest satisfaction level, as pesky Londoners as ever. But 84% will recommend that people come and see our work again. So it's a very strong audience base. It's a very good way for any organisation or venue to reach out to new audiences. That's the audience agency report. You can check on there if you would like more detail on that. There are lots more statistics, but it's good, well-researched empirical data there. Just some of the things we've been doing here is our resources page for COVID-19 on our website. I will put all these links up in the chat later. And we've prepared quite a lot of documents to help guide people through. And there are links to other organizations' documents. We've also been running this directory of bookable shows. So these are shows which you can book now that are ready to go. If you are considering an outdoor offering and you don't have work you're trying to adapt, or you don't have work, please check through that. Those are shows that are all set to be booked tomorrow. For various reasons, quite interestingly, people who work in families or small groups have been able to rehearse during lockdown, and those shows are tried and tested and ready. And here is just on our events listings page. Please keep in touch with us about that, because what we are doing is keeping up to date as best we can with anything that goes out, and of course keeping up to date with anything that goes online. So those listings are there, and we're differentiating very crudely with live and online. For example, New and Unlocked, the one you can see at the bottom there, is starting today, which is already lots of outdoor arts companies in there, Mimbra, Upswing, and they've recorded special shows for that. But then some really creative ways that shows are going back. The Handlebars there, that's kind of really interesting. They're a company that tour on bikes, so they're able to get around without, they're kind of socially distanced from their audience. So please, anything that you would like us to list, drop us a line to info@outdoorartsuk, and we'd be very, very happy to list that and keep things up to date. So what we're attempting to do today, though, is introduce a little bit more of our work to anybody who may want to know about how to produce in the outdoor sector, some of the basic questions, how we respond to weather, how we deal with cable runs in normal circumstances, and then obviously quite specifically why outdoors is a good thing during the COVID-19 situation. So hopefully the brilliant people who very kindly joined us this morning will be able to help us and take us through that. So I'm just going to pop into chat. There you go. There's a little agenda for you just to talk us through, so you can look through what we're doing. So first of all, I would like to call on Paul, who is Head of Culture and Libraries for Medway Council. And Paul and I used to work together when I was at the National and he was at Southwark Council, where he did a fantastic job of integrating outdoor arts into the cultural programme in Southwark. And I'm sure he's doing exactly the same in Medway. So Paul, may I hand over to you for about 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody. It's lovely to see so many faces and so many faces that I know as well. So some Medway folks have joined as well, which is lovely to see you all. Yeah, so as Angus has rightly said, I've worked in local authorities for over 20 years. Before that, I worked for festivals and theatres around London and in West Yorkshire, around Leeds and Bradford. So hopefully I've got some tips and advice for you from a kind of local authority perspective. And I guess it's important to understand why local authorities are kind of important to outdoor arts and how they can support outdoor arts, because essentially on most occasions, on many occasions, not every occasion, but on many occasions, we're kind of the gatekeepers to outdoor work actually happening. Either we own land or buildings, or we issue licenses, we scrutinise management plans. So we play a really important role in kind of helping you deliver outdoor arts. So I just wanted to give you 5 tips, if that's all right. 4 of them you can take at any time, COVID or not, and one of them is specifically around COVID that I just wanted to flag and that actually Angus has touched on. So my first tip is treat a local authority, your council that you're going to be working with as a partner. Don't treat them as a faceless bureaucrat, a kind of a blockage, someone we've got to provide loads of paperwork with. We are people, we have hearts and feelings, and actually you'll find on most occasions we want to help you as much as possible. So I would suggest that you find an ally to work with, you know, an arts officer, an events officer, a parks, a town centre manager, whoever it is, somebody who has an interest in the work that you're doing, someone who might be able to help you navigate the structures of a local authority, the structures of a council, because yes, they can be really confusing. But somebody that you can build a good relationship with, somebody that you can trust, that you can work with, and it'll really make a difference when it comes to approaching a local authority, whether it's for a license or permission to use some land. So it will really help. My second tip is around rules and regulations. There are rules and regulations around using parks and public spaces and streets for entertainment. They are different depending on the size and scale of the work that you want to do, but try and familiarise yourself with those rules and regulations. Read as much as possible. Most local authorities will have stuff online on their websites. You might need a bit of help finding it, digging through the layers of websites. But there is a difference between closing a road and putting some performance on a street. There can be differences, and it's all to do with scale. But when you're developing your work, it's really important to understand those processes as well, what you're allowed to do, what you can't do, what you need the permissions for. So gen up on kind of rules and regulations. You'll find the information out there, and I'm sure Outdoor Arts and Angus can help kind of push you to the sorts of things you need to be looking for. My third tip is around planning. Planning. Don't come to us with wanting to do something in 3 days' time. It's likely not to happen. So make sure that you plan ahead well enough. Give ample time to get the permissions that you need. You know, even when you start thinking about developing a show, a performance, Even when you're writing your funding application, start thinking about the time it takes or the time it might take to get the permissions and the licenses that you need, and build that into your timelines from the very beginning. So planning, planning, planning. So it might sound really simple, and we're all good planners, but it can be the scourge of some kind of outdoor arts producers where they don't give enough time for things to happen. And again, the bigger the thing that you're doing, the more time you'll need to get the right permissions and plans in place. So planning, planning, planning. My fourth tip is around engagement. So if you're working in an area that you're not particularly familiar with, take time to just learn about that area a little bit, make some connections, maybe engage with a few stakeholders, friends of groups, tenants and residents groups, neighbourhood groups. Because if they support your work, there's an extra voice there, a kind of a stronger voice when you go to a local authority to talk about the work that you're doing. So if engagement is implicit within what you're doing, make sure you make those local connections before you approach the local authority. It just strengthens your case when you approach them. So those are my 4 tips for generally, I would give those out at any time. But there's some stuff specifically around COVID that I wanted to mention as well. As we all know, COVID's continuing to have a huge impact on all our residents and young people. And even with the easing of lockdown, it continues to affect kind of the most vulnerable in our society and community. So local authorities are really, really nervous at the moment about giving permission to formally bring people together in a planned way. I mean, we can't do much about how many people are in shops and whether people are wearing masks in supermarkets, but certainly when it comes to planned kind of activity and entertainment, we're really super nervous. We're still seeing lots of local lockdowns. We're still seeing the virus spreading, and what none of us want to be is the cause of that virus spreading. So there's a lot of nerves. It's not just local authorities, it's all our safety partners as well. So the police, our public health teams, are really nervous about it. And actually, for the first time ever, most local authorities will have a safety advisory group for which your event plans will pass through. For the first time ever, certainly in Medway, we've now got a public health representative on that advisory group. So it's really important that we get that up-to-date information and intelligence around how the virus is working in a particular area. So read the government guidance, the interpretation of the guidance that Angus and Outdoor Arts have been doing. It's really important that you can show that you understand that and you can place that in your plans to support social distancing. I mean, look at what others are doing, in terms of social distancing and the management of gatherings. Because it can happen, it can work. We've seen it happening. I don't know whether you've seen in Bristol the beautiful hearts that have been painted on the park to help people sit in their bubbles, in those groups, kind of socially distanced. Really amazing. And I think when you're pitching to the council, when you're talking to the council, it is worthwhile reminding them that kind of health-wise, social isolation and kind of disconnection of families and friends has a huge impact on people's health and well-being. And so that tied with those, people doing less physical activity, COVID-19 is going to support kind of further health inequalities that all our communities have. So actually bringing live performance back is really important. The work that you do is really important. I'm an absolute believer of that, and reach out to the communities, reintroduce live performance. Nobody's had any of it since March. People really want it, they need it as well. So make it safe, make it for families, make it for children so they can kind of experience, I guess it's the wonder and the magic of kind of outdoor arts and what it can bring to a community. Let them start experiencing it again, but make sure it's safe, and talk to your local authority as soon as possible, I would suggest.
Great, that's
it from me.
Really terrific. Thank you so much, Paul. And I mean, the forward planning, absolutely essential, but I have already heard some wonderful exceptional cases of local authorities rushing through because of the nature of the response and able therefore to do things on a quite quick turnaround. Just a couple of those have come my way quite recently, which is amazing to see. However, planning ahead is better. In terms of just following on from that, so I'm just going to ask Reese from OA UK. One of the things we did was we were making a lot of assumptions, obviously, about how people were feeling about audiences going back outdoors. So we commissioned with Indigo a survey of audiences who had some relationship with outdoor arts to ask them what they what was affecting them about the possibility of going back. So research, we're halfway through the survey. It's still open. Please sign up via the website. We'd be delighted to have you, or just fill it in. And so we've taken a quick snapshot of some of the stuff halfway through the survey. So Reese, thank you. I'll hand over to you if I may.
Yeah, so weeks 1 to 3. So we started this survey at the beginning of July, and we're running it through until the end of August. And as Angus said, if you haven't taken it yet, please do. And also, if you're a venue or organisation and you'd like to sign up, you can do so as well. So this data that I'm sharing with you is in response to 4,817 people, and that's been disseminated via 77 participating organisations, which is all across the country. So we've got a really good spread of this data. So the main headlines, and as Paul's just kindly said, people are missing theatre and people are missing outdoor events. So we've found that 88% of people are missing outdoor arts events, which I think is a real seal of approval for what outdoor arts events do for people. 75% are looking forward to the buzz of being at a live event. We asked people about the different things that they were excited about, and definitely, as Angus has already alluded, the things that were scoring highly were this idea of actually seeing something spectacular, being at a live event, but also spending time with family and friends was a really high one as well. Outdoor arts is inherently a really social thing. The public domain is a place for socializing. Good news for a sector that so for those that might not know, outdoor arts, a lot of outdoor arts events are free. They're in the public realm, they're easy to access, and actually the people that we've surveyed, 98% have said that they are willing to pay or donate to attend events in the future, which is a really good seal of approval for any venues or events that might be thinking about going ahead and actually programming some outdoor arts but are worried about making it cost efficient. So audiences are willing to pay for it. It's not a case of that they're expecting you to put on a big festival for free. 78% would attend with the appropriate safety measures in place. What those safety measures are, we'll come on to, but yeah, a strong proportion of people are really keen to get back outdoors. There's a small minority, which we of course expected, that said that they wouldn't think about returning to events anytime soon. But 78% we think is a really good stamp of approval that suggests that people are ready and keen to get back out if it is safe to do so. So at the moment, we surveyed the different types of events that people were interested in returning to. And at the moment, audiences feel most comfortable with drive-in, open-air theatre, plays, rural and countryside festivals, and less comfortable with the ones that you can see on the screen. It's a real mix in terms of what people are comfortable with. And the trend that we're sort of seeing is mainly around perhaps what people are used to attending, but also what's sort of in the public consciousness at the moment. And as Angus said at the start, open-air theatre and plays are some of the first venues that have been managed to get back up and running. And also drive-in performances have been quite popular, although not necessarily an area of outdoor arts that was very popular before. So that will be really interesting to follow what that trend is. In terms of safety and hygiene measures, audiences at the moment think that hand sanitizer, on-site cleaning and careful management of toilet facilities are the main things that we need to be considering. So it's really focused around making sure that everywhere that they're using is going to be clean and safe for them, their family and their friends. In terms of physical space management, so particularly when working outdoors, the general public are quite unruly. So things that audiences feel that would be useful to perhaps streamline that experience a little bit more would be to implement one-way systems and separate entrances and exits. In a large greenfield festival, for example, that might not be something that you might have seen before COVID, but it's definitely something that audiences are looking for now. Demarcation areas, so as Angus has just alluded to, small love hearts and things like that to sort of outline where audiences should be sitting, just really clear indicators. but also staff enforcing strict social distancing. We took quite a lot of anecdotal evidence as well, and a lot of people's concerns around other people following the rules. And one thing that people were really clear about was that if the event has a really clear stance on the social distancing and safety measures that they were enforcing, that would make them feel a lot more comfortable. Audiences at the moment feel a lot more comfortable staying local. I suppose that's not a surprise to anyone. And 5 out of 10 people felt comfortable attending mega events, which we classified as 2,500 people, as opposed to 9 out of 10, which felt comfortable attending 1 to 50. So definitely thinking hyperlocal on your street, in your area, sort of in the town that you live is definitely what people are interested in. Although that doesn't necessarily mean people that aren't willing to travel. So what we actually found was that 65% of people would travel regionally to nearby towns, cities or countryside for outdoor arts events. And the ways that they were interested in doing that were mainly by foot, cycling or car. They were less interested in public transport. Obviously, in terms of car, there are environmental issues there. But yeah, absolutely. People are definitely keen to travel to an event if it is going to give them the experience that they're looking for. So yeah, that was a really quick run through. And as we said, if you haven't taken the survey, we'd love to hear your thoughts. But also, if you're interested in receiving the full report at the end of August, please do sign up, and you can do so via our website.
Thanks, Rhys. We closed the survey on the 21st of August, and then we've got a week or so to gather that last evidence. Thank you very much. So one of the responses to that has also been through artists, and we were talking about responsibility and safety with Paul earlier, and artists have been absolutely brilliant about creative ways of coming up with safe measures of performing. So I'm going to hand over to Mark Tillson from Mark Productions. We've worked together in the past. Famously, I was just reminding him, he shot Sooty in Theatre Square outside the National Theatre.
3 times.
3 times. Amazing. Mark, if you'd like to share with us what you're up to,
he's
that would be
absolutely fine.
He's fine. Good.
Shot him earlier in the year. It's great. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all okay and still getting through this madness. As Angus was saying, my name is Mark Tillson, and I run Mark Productions with Maggie Marsden, who I think is also on here. So Angus is going to show us a few. Rhys is putting up a brief right in the middle. You can see Angus there. That's not the show we shot Sooty in. This is just to give you a brief example of the sort of things we do. We're a performance and street arts company. We started in 1991 out of schools like École Jacques Lecoq and Philippe Gollier. We perform generally and create work for about 100 festivals a year, mostly in the UK, the occasional foray into Europe. I don't know how that will pan out in the future. All of our work comes from commissions with festivals and producers, such as Sea Change Arts with the Out There Festival, Arts Fresco, who I believe are here, initially started by Kat Lariggio and now Debbie Longley, who I think is on here with us. The National Theatre, obviously, when Angus was there, we think did 4 years there, which was amazing. But as Paul was saying, which I think is really interesting, with lots and lots of local authorities. You know, local authorities are this gateway, they're this great key, and their events teams support a lot of this outdoor work that we do. Medway has got some amazing festivals, the Dickensian Festival, with the Fuse Festival as well, but there's other ones, and so many of you have put on so many events a year, and they're what we're working for in so many ways. We are supported a bit by Arts Council England and OA UK. I suppose our work is mostly comic or comedic. You could probably lose that slide there. I think we've had enough of that, Rhys. And but there's lots of medieval festivals and stuff like that. We can see that one a bit later, Rhys, if that's okay. Like everybody here, that was then, and so much has changed in such a short space of time. But this thing does look like being with us for a while. I think for all of us, though, there are, like what we talked quite a lot on with OA UK, is there valid reasons to be positive. The key for us as a company is adaptable creativity. It seemed clear quite early on for all of us that the first area of performance that would come back would be outdoor performance. I think as a genre, outdoor arts and outdoor artists are arguably the most adaptable performance arts sector. We're really used to the uncontrollable elements of performance. We're used to adapting creative approaches and reflecting society, you know, holding that mirror, that eponymous mirror up to nature. So with this in mind, back in June, we started working on this idea of socially distanced street performance, creating work that would be totally compliant with all regulations and still be effective, artistic and entertaining. We worked with a couple of local authorities and organisations to see how it could be implemented. The local authorities were keen on the aspects of brightening up public spaces and communities and bringing confidence back to public spaces and really cheering people up. I think that was the main thing, is using street arts to still cheer people up through this situation. Maggie, who's on here with us, worked with bacteriologists from Bradford University and Public Health England to help analyse risk and develop a detailed risk assessment. We've shared this with OA UK and NASA and other organisations, extracts as well. It's pretty thorough, but adaptable as regulations seem to be changing and as lockdowns change, and whether that be geographically or as we progress through. Also with that, we changed spaces. So Maggie adapted her VW camper as a COVID compliant changing room, which has been great. Can we have the next slide up now, Reese? Is that okay? Slide 2, the walkabout one. Okay, clearly one of the most effective styles of performance would be walkabout shows. And now I'm just going to explain a little bit about what a walkabout show is for those of you that may be not familiar with the different kinds of terminology. A walkabout show for us is a show that travels and moves around so the audience doesn't have to gather and group. So a safety consideration for the audience is clearly paramount, and for the performers, but the audience and performers alike. So walkabout shows, like the ones you see here, they can be watched from shops, windows, balconies, market stalls, and should be interesting and effective from a distance. 2 meters is going to be far too close, generally, for all this kind of stuff. Also, the performance has the adaptability to control the risk by moving away. All right, so you only, again, the style of performance isn't new. You've probably got to go back to Roman theatre to find where this started from. But throughout the ages, walkabout and travelling shows have always been there. How to manage audiences, of course, is a question. Outdoor performers, we could probably lose that slide now if that's okay, Reese. Outdoor performers are experts in adapting to very different audiences, dynamics and structures. For an outdoor performer, your audience can change often, or your audience structure can change 2 or 3 times a day, or even just during one show. You can have different audience structures. So for an outdoor performer, understanding their audience and understanding the structure of how that audience is really, really important. And it's very natural for outdoor performance. Indoor spaces, however adaptable they are, with Belisha seating and amazing flexibility of indoor spaces, they're never going to have that fluidity and freedom of an outdoor performance. It just doesn't work like that. So good outdoor performers are extremely aware of audience proximity and of structure, which I think is really important. So if the audience and environment is going to change so rapidly, as it does for outdoor performers, probably the material will. There's no other performance that is has to improvise quite so much as outdoor performers. I'm not just talking about within the show. It's like for rain, for logistics, for changing spaces. You look at something like the Hat Fair, where you have 3 different performance spaces in one day, and you're traveling between the 2 and sharing those, not just the Hat Fair, but so many others, loads of them. And this brings us back to the concept of creative adaptability. So we were thinking, we thought what we have to do now is adapt the content, adapting costumes. Can we put slide 3 up, Reese? That would be great. So using masks where possible, where necessary in the show, but making that mask part of the performance. Again, masks are nothing new in theatre. The Greeks had them over 2,000 years ago, admittedly for different reasons. Commedia, obviously. So masks can happen and masks can be adaptable. So with all this together and all this audience stuff and costume and van in mind, we developed this thing, this genre called socially distant street theatre, a collection of shows that can work where we are now. Can we put the next slide up, Sleeve? That's the last one, I think. So socially distant street theatre for us is a series of concepts, really. Theatre to stay clear of, characters to be avoided, walkabouts to walk away from. All these shows that try and bring humour and laughter to spaces, but engage and all socially distanced. The first performance was in early July. We can probably lose it now. I think we had enough of those legs, Reese, that's great. The first performance was in early July, and I suppose both Maggie and I were a little bit nervous about how it would go, how it would be received, how the audience would perceive what was happening, and because it's just changed, hasn't it? It was really good. I know you expect us to say that, but it was amazing, and it was great. Positive responses from all sections of the community. Local authority had so much good feedback on social media that they booked 5 more days, pretty much straight away. Maggie and I got so many messages and positive. It was great for us to be out there performing again, but people like mouthing thank you out on the streets, going, and it's like they needed a laugh. People needed to smile. They needed to be cheered up, and needed for it to be not on a screen, for that to be live, for that to be interactive. So I think, actually, it can be done. It can be done safely, and it can be done well. We have a web page that details a lot of that advice. And I think, I'll finish off by saying, I think we can be positive and realize that outdoor arts will have to lead culture for a section of the foreseeable future. And if we can adapt our performance models and our shows and demonstrate safe practice, we know this can work. Nothing can cheer up spaces and communities like laughter. I have a short video. I don't know if we've got, it's only a minute and a half or so, but Reese could set that up, and that just shows you, I think it will show you briefly pictures and a little bit of video of what we did in Darlington.
Far too early in the morning for the Bee Gees. What were you thinking?
Sorry.
That's quite all right. No, thank you. And thank you for such a kind of hopeful message. And it's really good to see evidence that things are happening out there. That's great. And well done you. And it's also, it just really enforces that responsibility that artists are taking at this time. So thank you very much. Right. I'd like now to hand over to actually one of my board members and an independent producer who's worked with a really wide variety of companies. Lou Lomas is going to talk to us a little bit about producing in the outdoors. Thanks, Lou. Can I hand over to you?
Yeah, thanks, Angus. Reese, if it's all right, just to start the slides, and I'll whistle stop through some of those images. Just first of all, just to say, I've been working in the outdoor arts sector for 10 years. I'm Coventry based and I'm a freelance outdoor arts producer and a really proud advocate for the sector. I truly believe that outdoor arts can change the world and help us reconnect with people, which feels more important than ever during these current times. Public space is the venue and the city centre is the background, and the town square, the woodland, the open space, the playground of possibilities, and there are so many factors you have to consider when working outdoors. This image is from the beautiful project that we did pre-COVID, so I'm just highlighting these are all images pre-COVID of our beautiful bridge structure in Broadgate in Coventry with Imagineer, where we think we had around 4,000 people watch our show, and under the Bridge Programme community activity event with a nighttime circus dance performance. The next slide you'll see is Ascension Dance, parkour dance company, made out of wooden timber beams. Those are Leonardo Bridge Da Vinci kits that Imagineer supported the development of new work. And the reason why I'm showing you these images is because these are shows that I've been working with closely with the artists to adapt for post-COVID times and how we can do those projects socially distanced. The next image you'll see is queuing. Okay, so sporting, this was commissioned in the Olympic year of 2012 to think about queuing as a British sport that could join the Olympics. And now we've kind of wanted to advise people on socially distanced queuing. So we're adapting this show to kind of tour your high street. So if you do see these people in orange, they are friendly people, I promise, that might advise you on queue etiquette. The next slide we have is just to say that I also co-program with a lady called Claire Maddox, the Festival of Imagineers. It's an art and engineering festival that happens in Coventry. And this is Luke Jerram's beautiful piece, Museum of the Moon, which I'm sure you've all seen. And this is in the iconic building before it was closed, the Coventry Swimming Baths. And it meant that people had the opportunity to swim under the moon. Again, I'm highlighting this further in, but this is about partnerships, thinking about the breadth of partnerships and collaborations of where you can take work. The next slide is the Fabularium. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about these later, but these are a family children's theatre. These were my first artists to go back on the road last week, and I'll talk a bit about what they found out a bit later in this. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the breadth of collaboration, wanted to talk about venues, bid schemes, and it felt really fitting to talk about the time when I co-produced the Shopfront Festival with Oryters Az and Theatre Absolute. We have the only shopfront theatre in Coventry, in the kind of in the UK, outside of England, and we have the Shopfront Festival, which produces a whole host of indoor venue activity, and we animated high streets and collaborated with communities, bid schemes, local authorities. Everybody was a key collaborator as part of this festival that we did 2 years ago. And the final slide that you'll see of images is of the wonderful Ascension Dance again, working with over 200 young people dancing in Broadgate Square, and it just makes me feel really joyous, and I really want to get back to those times. So I'm going to whistle stop through some key considerations, because Angus asked me to consider about what that meant working as a producer and kind of giving advice back to those of you who might be producing outdoor arts events and programming, and Paul has touched on lots of that, and so has Mark, so I'll try to be as swift as I can because I'm conscious of time of going through some of this. So for me, it was really important that when we got the kind of light to go ahead with events, it was really important to kind of highlight that we really want to make sure that you're creating high quality experiences. Okay, so those of you who have venues who are taking work outdoors, it's still making sure that we're looking after and supporting our audiences and making sure that work is ready. So there is no kind of behind the scenes when you're out in public, everything is live, and it's, you know, even if you think it's your dress run, members of the public might not. So it's making sure that everything is of the highest quality, or you're really clear in where you're at in that process. It's also ensuring really that you make work that's inclusive and accessible and enjoyable, and more importantly now more than ever feels safe. The second point that I just want to go through is placement and location. So this will be about logistics, those of you taking work outdoors, and it isn't just about kind of finding power of where your local power points are in city centre and collaborating with your local authority. It's more about thinking about the key consideration of what your backdrop is for that work. Is there loud noises in the background? Where will you place it? Okay, having a wet weather plan. I know that we really don't like to talk about this. Obviously, it never rains here in the UK, does it? But it's worth considering having a wet weather contingency plan of what can happen for your work. And again, I think it's being sure that you think and give yourself enough lead-in time, talk to people, have a phone a friend that you ask for advice and know what your kind of contingency backup might be. Number 3. Audience and engagement. So really, again, thinking about who the work is for. Okay, so if you're taking work outdoors, think about who's it for, who are you targeting? Think about any age regulations that you might have on a show, who you're targeting. Think about how you're going to hold their attention during this time. How do we kind of create those safe conditions and want to create a transformative space that's a moment in time for those people where they think that their local bakery might be, you know, will never be the same for them outside the front of that. Narrative. So not just the narrative of your work, but also the story of your marketing and comms. It's integral. Making sure that the story that you're telling is clear and thinking about the story that you want other audiences to tell. So never underestimate your power of your audiences that will go off and be the advocates for your projects and shows. They need to have a good experience with you, so look after them. In regards to health and safety, I know that Outdoor Arts UK have done some incredible work at collecting all of that database for production, for producers, for artists, where there's a link to all of those people who have skills in this sector. So please talk to them. Please talk to your kind of production managers, event managers, safety advisory groups, local authorities. Think through what your event safety manual might be, the risk assessments. NASA UK put together a beautiful template that was really helpful for lots of my artists thinking about how they move forward. So it's really useful that you take on board all of those considerations. And then I got to number 6 and I thought about budgets and contracting. I've had to be really meticulous and really kind of detailed going through some of the shows that have been out on the road and thinking about some people who were quite, who might not want to offer a contract or know how to do that. And there are templates around for you to do that and consider. And also there is a budget line implication now that, you know, we have to be including as touring shows, as artists and as programmers for COVID. So thinking about, you know, is it a 5 to 10% of your budget line that you include now to make sure that you have the safe PPE, to make sure that if there's more insurance needed in different places, whatever that is, making sure that you've put the financial infrastructure there, because that can kind of make or break a touring show of whether that's a success or not. Partnerships, I know that we've touched on. I really can't encourage you more. I love people, I'm just saying that, but I really love communities, I love local authorities, I love bid schemes. It's all, for me, how we work together in that shared space, how we all collaborate and how we're all co-creators of that work. So please make friends is what I'm trying to say. Please talk to people, please share. People want your event to be a success, so no one's trying to be the gatekeepers of stopping you. They're just trying to make sure that you're safe, the public are safe, and everything goes to plan. Permissions and licenses. So on every local authority website, I imagine they have their temporary event licenses, or landowners will have permissions and forms you need to complete. And it's just being really mindful. And people like Paul, people like, I'm going to cite Ben Irwin, who's been brilliant, who I've worked with before, and you know, and Carol Slate, they're brilliant people at local authority level that have really helped and supported artists through that process and signposting all of those things. Accessibility. This is really big, and this should also be in your budget line all of the time anyway, but there's new factors I think you should consider about making your event accessible. And there are things about festivals, about sanitation. You knew that I was going to talk about toilets. Toilets is a really big thing as well, of making sure that you have your site infrastructure, and thinking about the percentage of cost that might be again. So I estimated again that could be another 10 to 15 to 20% of your budget. So it's thinking about all of those additional things, the hand washing facilities that you need to implement. And then my last point was about kind of government guidance. Okay, so please make sure that you keep reading and keep up to date. So up until the point where we were on the road last week, we made sure that we kept reading any changes. We kind of kept our finger on the pulse of all of that. and kind of kept ahead. And there's brilliant guidance from Outdoor Arts UK, as I said before, NASA UK. I know Emergency Exit Arts have kind of shared lots of information as well. And it's just being really aware about what's around and doing your kind of reading and research and keeping conscious of all of those things. If I could have the next slide, please. So I just put together a kind of series of useful links. These are just some useful links for you to kind of go and have a look at. And I'm sure that the team won't mind if this was an available slide or share those links already that are probably on our website.
They'll be coming up at the end, so great, thanks.
Sorry. And then just finally, I just wanted to just show you this image. So last year we're used to maybe having 650 to 800 audiences. This is for the Fabularium, our performance. We have a medieval pageant wagon that we tour around for shows for families. And normally families at the end come up on stage, they can have their photo taken with the cast, they can do all of those things. And this year was really different for us. And there's lots of kind of shared learning from that about how they found that process that I know Fabularium are really happy to talk back to the sector. And they basically kept a kind of video diary of the time leading up to the kind of performance, then during the performance, and then they've done an evaluation after, which I think is about 30 minutes long, that they're going to release on their website later next week. And it just kind of really feeds in the process that they went through as a company. Okay, the model that they had to find to feel comfortable, and the open dialogue that we had with the event organizer as well. So I have to say that Claire Williams up at Ulverston Coronation Hall was really brilliant. You know, we shared our kind of risk assessments for her event, for what we were going to do, and it was constantly in dialogue and collaboration. So I can't stress that enough of how that important that is. And I know that the Fabularium are really happy to answer any questions about how they found that process. And just before I leave you, I just wanted to leave on this note because it really stayed with me. I was sort of reading back through some old university papers the other week, and I found a quote from Peter Brook, and it says, "It's easy to give up, and that's the one thing that we cannot do. That's what gives me reason for working, to leave people with a little more courage, with a little hope that has been nourished. And even if, of course, it's going to disappear, what touches one isn't lost forever." Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. That's really helpful and really comprehensive. Much appreciated. And amazing creative ideas. It's funny seeing that picture and seeing a small audience and feeling really good about that. My panic of, oh my God, I can't count the numbers is completely abated. And how lovely you put that picture of Spoffin, that beautiful piece on the canal there. Would we all have canals like that to program? Right, I'm going to move on now to Graham Callister, who is from the Birmingham Hippodrome. So to talk a little bit about how venues work with the outdoor sector. Graham, may I hand over to you?
Thanks, Angus. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to hopefully share my screen just for a few slides with you all. Great, thanks, Reese, for the thumbs up. Okay, so I'm Graham Callister. I'm Director of Festivals at Birmingham Hippodrome. And Birmingham Hippodrome, for those of you who don't know, it's a theatre in the centre of Birmingham that's been there for 120 years now. We celebrated that anniversary last year. So a very, very different year for us this year. It's the busiest single theatre in the UK. We sell over 500,000 tickets annually. We never shut as a theatre, or certainly didn't until the current crisis. We're a charity. We do not receive any regular funding from City Council or Arts Council. So we make all the money we make on our shows that we have at the Hippodrome. We reinvest into our outdoor arts and education programs at the Hippodrome. We also fundraise against that as well in terms of corporate partners and some Arts Council project funding. Our sort of overall primary mission is 1 million moments. And what we mean by that is that we create 500,000 free ticketed moments, I should say, through our main auditorium, through our shows, and another 500,000 free or low-cost activities through our festivals and our learning and participation programs. We're located in Southside of Birmingham, so we're in Chinatown, and we're also next to the Gay Village. So it's a very vibrant and diverse part of the city. We're the home of Birmingham Royal Ballet, Dance Exchange, One Dance UK, and Dance Hub as well. So there's a huge amount of dance that takes place. And there is a selection of our program that we have at the Hippodrome on the main stage. So our wonderful panto, which won't be happening this year, unfortunately, but also the musicals, opera, ballet, dance that we have across our programme in the main. As I mentioned, I'm responsible for festivals, so we have been the lead producer on 3 out of 4, I think, of the Birmingham Weekender Festival. This is the biggest multi-art form festival that takes place in the Midlands, and we've had some fantastic acts there over previous years. In better times, we also present work like Furious Folly as part of 1418 Now. We also have our B-side hip hop festival, which is in its 5th year this year, which incorporates all the 4 elements of hip hop, that's being dance, spoken word, MCing, DJing, and visual arts graffiti. And we also put on a fantastic outdoor festival called Summer in Southside, which has been going for probably about 6 years now. And we also co-produce Chinese New Year. And part of our programming with community festivals is that we'll often program content into some of the mellas that take place in the city, Eid celebrations. We also work with Pride and with other festivals as well. So we're very, very active in the festival scene in Birmingham and the West Midlands. We also host and convene the Birmingham Festivals Group, which is, we have about 50 plus festivals that take place in Birmingham alone, all sorts of different types, and it's a really vibrant festival scene that we have going on. So that's a little bit about the Hippodrome. If I can stop sharing my screen now. Let's see if that works. Okay, great. Angus has asked me to cover 3 points. How the organisation has retained its identity during the current crisis. Why do we undertake outdoor arts? Why do we make outdoor arts work? And why do we put on festivals in Birmingham? And also, what are we doing around repurposing any indoor resources that we have at the theatre? If I deal with the first question, so our organisational identity during the current crisis. The venue, very sadly, is closed, like many of our theatres across the UK at the moment. And I think the situation for many of our theatres is that we won't really be looking to reopen until January, February, spring at the earliest in 2021. I mean, social distancing is the real killer for us in terms of putting on those performances. All of that said, as an organisation as well, we're also facing massive redundancies. So we've lost about 54 people by the end of this month, but we continue nonetheless to plan for better days. Most of our senior management team are actually active in a whole range of different national sector support, lobbying, forums, or conversations with government to try and look about how can we support the sector during this time. We're also hugely active on social media in terms of the breadth of what we do and work what we're promoting. On a festivals front, I would like to say though that there's some green shoots starting to appear in Birmingham, which is fantastic, and nationally as well. And that's very encouraging. So we're working presently with Birmingham Royal Ballet to put on one of their outdoor rehearsals of their dancers, their ballet dancers in Centenary Square. Again, all socially distanced, all COVID compliant. That will be at the end of August, and it really is going to be for passing public moving through Centenary Square. It's not a public performance, it's about seeing the rehearsal class. But in terms of performances, we're also working with Bullring Grand Central, which is the big shopping mall in the middle of Birmingham. The Bullring wants to bring a smile back to people's faces who are coming into the shopping centre. So they're looking to us to bring some outdoor performances, and very much touching on Mark's points before, we're looking at walkabouts, roaming acts that could take place. So hopefully we'll be bringing the Talking Birds and their queue to the Bullring at the end of this month, but also fairly famous families, attendants, and also Susan, the socially distanced robot, who will be moving up and down various spaces outdoors presently in the Bullring. So we're starting off very, very simply with some pilot projects, some pilot performances, which is all about then building confidence and trust with the council. The point being made about local authorities before, they are your friend on these events, particularly with regard to public or private space in regard to the Bullring space, I should say. And it's important to note, I think, that local authorities have been overwhelmed by the crisis. They're dealing with so many different things on so many different fronts that we really are unaware of, I think, in the main in the public sphere. So do work with them. We want to build confidence in these small pilot events to then look about how we can bring about other events later this year. And that might be more installation-based work, similar to the types of things you're seeing on the Outdoor Arts website, but also at Greenwich and Docklands Festival later this year. One of the challenges that we still have, though, with regards to maintaining identity is actually the kind of mixed messages that are going out from the theatre. So on the one hand, we have mass redundancies. We're asking the public to support us with fundraising, but at the same time, we're putting on free performances out in the public realm. So we're very much positioning the work that we are putting in the public realm as funded by Arts Council. We got some Arts Council project funding just before lockdown, which is enabling us to make the argument, make the case that this is Arts Council funding, this is not the Hippodrome. And so that's a bit of a challenge for us, but we'll see how that goes on our social media front. One of the other things I should say we're working towards is, well, two things. We have an outdoor graffiti jam planned for the end of September as part of our B-Side Hip Hop Festival. That'll be a mix of Be Inside, which will be online digital content, which will be dance battles and talks and so on and so forth. But the graffiti jam outside is something that we believe we can realize, again, quite simply within the COVID compliance. So audiences will be moving around. We actually think it's an event that can happen in full lockdown again, frankly, because audiences are moving around over a 1 mile distance, looking at work that's either being created or in the process of being created. And all of the graffiti artists we work with are all socially distanced behind barriers anyway, and helpfully wearing face masks. So that's something we also want to realise. So this is about bringing people back into Birmingham. It's about bringing people back into our streets, and also messaging around how the arts sector and the cultural sector and outdoor arts in particular is also playing its role, not just to bring back those audiences, but also supporting the hospitality sector, which has been massively impacted as well by the COVID crisis. Touching upon why outdoors, it's very simple for us at the Hippodrome. I mean, we're a charity, as I mentioned. So part of our charitable objects are about how can we ensure that we're reaching everybody in Birmingham, all the different communities that we have in the wonderful city of Birmingham. Our main stage audiences, as you can imagine with many theatres, they're a particular demographic, they're a particular social group with disposable income. And whilst over a period of time we accept that we absolutely want to change our main stage audiences to be more reflective of the communities we have in Birmingham, and we're moving towards that, one of the ways that we can I think outdoor arts really and outdoor events and festivals is a catalyst for that. It's a way of engaging with younger, more diverse audiences that the city have in all of those places where the audiences go, whether it's the shopping malls or whether it's the parks and various other locations we have in the city. So all of the work that I'm involved in is really about how are we looking to support more diverse work from artists, engage more diverse and broader audiences, because it's absolutely vital to the future of the theatre that we diversify our audiences. If we want to be here in 120 years' time, we need to be reflective of the communities that will be in Birmingham in 120 years' time, and more so now. So festivals, outdoor work really helps us be more than just a theatre. It provides ways that we can create new partnerships across the city with new audiences and new organisations as well. Final point, just been asked to touch upon, is repurposing indoor resources. Well, the Hippodrome is the receiving house, so by that we don't actually have an awful lot of equipment in the theatre. So unlike a producing house that may have its own whole range of different kit that could be used for outdoor work, but I mean at the moment where we are, there's not an awful lot of technical requirements or kit requirements, I would say, in putting on outdoor shows presently along the lines that we're talking about. We have in our festival department, we have mobile PAs, we have tape, we have very, very simple things in order to be able to put these small shows on outdoors in terms of where we are in the current climate. So I think that we can be quite light in resource wise. I don't know whether Angus, there's anything else you wanted to add on indoor resources particularly, but I think that was it from my side. So Very happy to take any questions later on, and equally, I'm also on Outdoor Arts UK's board, so if anybody would like to get in touch anytime, very happy to talk to people. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Graham. I mean, in terms of outdoors, one of the things when I was working at the National as a producing house was actually a lot of the team and a lot of the junior team, you couldn't wait to get outdoors in the summer, and it became quite an interesting place to upskill quite a lot of our team members there. It sort of became a little apprenticeship because you do have to think on the fly quite a lot. Now, really importantly, so health and safety is the key to all of this going ahead, and I'm a great advocate and believer in good health and safety. Health and safety is the great enabler to allow us, when you see pictures of me burning down the National Theatre, that was only possible with fantastic health and safety support. So I'd like to ask Brian from Sigma Safety to talk to us a little bit about what we know at the moment. Thank you, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. Saving the worst till last as usual, Angus. Thank you. I'll try not to be too dull on health and safety for everybody. This is a very difficult time. It's very difficult for everybody, and my feelings are very mixed around what's happening to everybody out there. It's really difficult, but what we need is a bit of positivity surrounding us from governments, local authorities, responsible authorities, everybody, to make things happen. My company, my business doesn't exist without people like we've had on here today and other people around the country taking a risk on events. Now, I'm not saying we should be risking public safety. That's the whole point of what we're talking about. But people need to take a risk, a financial risk, a reputational risk on doing events. If that doesn't happen, we have no jobs, and neither do all the people in the background and yourselves and all the artists and everybody who's involved in that massive hinterland of what we do. There's nothing for us if nobody takes a risk. So let's take some risks, and let's take some calculated risks. I found it really fascinating listening to the other speakers. It's great to go last because I get to steal all of their ideas and just regurgitate them into my own. What Paul said around local authorities, fantastic. Yes, engage with your local authority. Unfortunately, as somebody else mentioned, they're all under pressure at the moment. Budgets are tight. Somebody said on the last webinar that I was involved in, unfortunately, we've got to feed people first before we can do events. And off screen, I said something which I'm now going to repeat. It sounds really cheesy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yes, we have to feed people, but outdoor arts are food for the soul. And I mean that sincerely. If we don't have these events, people's mental health suffers, our whole economy suffers because there's nothing surrounding it. Just going to the shops and just going out and about isn't enough. We need to be stimulated. We need to be engaged. And I'm fascinated by the Walkabout acts, animating town centres, working with bids, working with local authorities, working with shopping organisations. A fantastic idea, and something you can do without any risk to anybody because the social distancing is there. On social distancing, I should say that I've been practicing for 30 years to do social distancing. Don't normally deal with people, don't like people. I do really, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying. But it's very important that we know why we're doing it. And so what I would say to people is do your research. Somebody, again, I think it was Paul said about reading around the subject, reading about the different rules, regulations, guidance. Now, I've got to say it. The government advice is at best mixed, at worst confusing and unhelpful. And so we rely on organisations like Outdoor Arts UK, on the National Outdoor Events Association, on pulling together all those different strands and sharing their best guess about what the government says we can do. I'm going to show some images in a second of an event that we're working on, one that is actually live and it's actually happening, and it's fantastic. I'll show those images in a second. From my point of view, the COVID-19 risk assessment is based on the government guidance regarding social distancing, PPE, 2 metre gaps, 1 metre plus, all these different elements. And it all depends on your venue. It really does. So I'm going to try and show an image now. Apologies if this goes wrong, but I'm not the best with computers. I think it's this one I want to show. So what you should be seeing there is a big empty marquee. Can somebody nod if that's happening, Reese? Is that happening? Brilliant. Big empty marquee. It looks soulless, doesn't it? It looks terrible. However, what you've got there is 80 tables and benches, each seating 6 people, so capacity of audience of 480 people. In the distance, you can see a DJ booth there. This is Social Avenue in Manchester, in Trafford in Manchester. And it's 4th weekend this weekend, and we've run every weekend. We haven't been stopped. We've had to stop the show ourselves a couple of times because people were getting a little bit too close to the DJ and coming out of their spaces. So originally we just had the tables and benches. Now we've got the yellow square around them. I'll see if we can get to another image. A cleaner, and yes, it's still empty, but this is showing with constant cleaning. Clean the surfaces, tidy up, get the public to just leave things where they are and get somebody else to do the tidying up. But you can see there the social distancing carries on throughout as long as you're with your social bubble. So you're up to 6 people. Information for people. So on every table, the rules are there, and also a big sign saying, please remain at your table. You have to stay in your group. You're allowed to stand up and dance in your own square. You're allowed to stay there. If you step away from your square to go to the toilet or occasionally the bar is mainly table service, but occasionally you can go to the bar, then you have to wear a face mask. And the reasons for wearing face masks have been touted around in the press. I believe they're a good thing. I think I protect you, you protect me with a face mask. But the good thing about face masks is they're really visual. So if everybody in the venue sees anybody standing up and walking around wearing a face mask, they're reminded of what the distancing is there for, what the PPE is there for. It works really well. Again, hand gel everywhere. The guys who run Social Avenue went out and bought a job lot, masses of it. On every table there's a bottle, everywhere you go there's a bottle, and the signage reminding people. And this is the most important thing about communicating with the audience. Tell them before, tell them when they get there, tell them what you expect of them. Keep reminding them with signage, keep reminding them with your staff. Our staff have been fantastic at that event. You've seen it empty. I'm going to now try and show it full. Does that look like a video about to start, Reese? There is sound. In fact, I'm going to turn the sound off. So this is Social Avenue. It's only 45 seconds long. Top DJs from all over. We had to knock a few on the head who were coming from Spain and Ibiza. They weren't allowed to come. But as you can see, it's a bit of a jump cut video, but people are in their space. They're in their own space. They're not moving around. It's loosely art. We're talking about outdoor arts here, but it is fantastic. And it was great to see so many people come along. And you'll notice in nearly every shot, happy, smiley faces. For me, that was really touching. The first one we did to see all those people having a great time. I'm going to stop that because I don't know who that's coming next. On the share, sorry about this. Stop share, there we go. Sorry, technology nearly defeated me there. Risk assessments, it's been said about the risk assessments that there's some great ones online. Fantastic. Use every resource you can possibly get to get a good risk assessment, but make it your own. There's no point in just copy and pasting something that somebody's posted online. It needs to be your risk assessment. Just trying to close everything. Everything started talking to me on my computer now. You need to do your own risk assessment. If you need help, ask for help. There are people who are on here or in this group who can help you. We can help you. I'm quite often giving people advice. If it's an email advice, if somebody emails me one sentence, what do I do about this? And I can reply with one sentence, you do this, then I'll do that, and I don't charge for it. If somebody sends me an essay and it takes me 4 days to answer it, then I'll maybe put a quote together because we're running a business. But there's so much help out there, and we're here to help. What we want is we want events to happen, and we want through events to continue to communicate the safety message, so social distancing, and that, as you've seen with the walkabout characters that we've been seeing, that can be incorporated into the show. That's what we've done with this Social Avenue. We've incorporated it into the show. It's part of the show. So we're changing things a little bit. This is not the new normal. We will get back to where we were before. We might change a few things because we like them. Things like Zoom chat and stuff like that. I'm not driving up and down the country anymore. I'm doing these kind of chats where you can share maps and you share plans. Fantastic. Saves money, good for the environment, good for the soul as well. Sitting 4 hours on the motorway isn't a particularly safe thing to do for an event. To sum up, there's loads on the internet. If you can't fathom out the advice, ask for help. Make sure you have somebody who's got knowledge of the legal side. And again, Social Avenue, last week we had 3 visits from police licensing, no problems whatsoever. The 4th visit was from a police officer who was a bit bored, was in the area to stop other events happening, came to our event and asked us to stop, asked us to turn the music off. We declined because he couldn't tell us under what legislation he was asking us to do that. You've got to be bold, you've got to be brave to do things like that. You don't want to go around upsetting the responsible authorities. However, there are licensing laws, there are health and safety laws, there are coronavirus laws. They're all different. You need to get some expert help if you can, or at least yourselves understand what you can and can't do. Really important, and that's what helps keep your artists and your public safe. I think I'll stop there if that's all right, Angus.
That's great. Thank you, Brian. And indeed, so positive. I put you last, save the best for last. You know, it is so important. I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed working with health and safety officers when you come up with some crazy scheme or ridiculous show and they go, right, how do we make that happen? They are the ones who are the enablers to me. I am very pro that. Thank you for being so clear with us. Right, what I'm going to do quickly now, thank you to Paul, to Reese, to Mark, to Lou, to Graham, to Brian. Really, really interesting indeed. I've seen some comments there saying inspiring and hopeful, and that's really good in what is, you know, essentially quite a practical session that we're running here. Just some resources that I'm going to stick into chat right now. Let me just run through what those are. I put these are ours to begin with. So the first one there is our main resources page. Then the directory of bookable shows that I mentioned, of shows that are ready to go. Then the one after that is what we're calling our pros and consultants directory. So this is people who we have asked to sign up to this. We're not in any way curating it. This is people who are experienced in the outdoor sector, who you can hire as consultants, or if they're further and they've got free time, maybe they'll give it to you, but don't assume that, please. But this is about us trying to share that expertise. There are all sorts of different people. You may want artistic advice about how to perform outdoors, what works well outdoors. You may want really practical advice in terms of health and safety or in terms of audience management. So there is a good range of people in there. It's divided into 3 sections. You'll be able to find some advice and help there. There's the link to our events page. As I say, we are updating that. There are some really good imaginative examples. It was great seeing that the dancing event, you know, another really creative way of looking at doing this. It's really interesting looking at, there's a tour I noticed going around of cricket grounds because they can't, they've got inbuilt social distancing for cricket. So really imaginative things. So those events listings are there. If you'd like one-to-ones with myself or any other members of the board, they're listed there on brown paper tickets. Please sign up to them. They're absolutely free. They're just a quick half hour and we'll just run through some stuff. We also run once a week. Indeed, today at 4 o'clock, we have a general drop-in for anybody who's got anything to chat about for outdoor arts. We usually have some kind of theme or some kind of presentation. In order to get that Zoom link, you need to be signed up to our free newsletter, and there's the link at the bottom of that there. So I'm just going to look slightly externally and share just a few more links with you of useful things that go beyond Outdoor Arts UK. And let me, sorry, I'm just whizzing around between different screens. Let me pop that in there and everyone. There we go. So here you'll find, this is the Association of Independent Festivals resources. I found that quite a useful one. NASA, just that's been mentioned a few times. We're not talking the space agency, much as we love them. This is the National Association of Street Artists, and particularly that's their risk assessment template page, which we actually, OA UK, supported them to produce that, and we're really pleased with that. I'm just mentioning Fool's Paradise Agency, which is an agency for booking acts. They've been working very carefully with their artists as to who's ready to go. And Without Walls is a commissioning program that operates across England. It's Arts Council MPO funded, and again provides a very comprehensive list of festivals and has a good directory of shows as well, largely international. But it's Extracts who manage that, hold that directory. Our safety, we have Brian's website there, Sigma, and another one we've been looking at is Showsmiths as well. There are many others out there as well. So those are just a few resources. Like I say, we will do, what we'll do is we'll put it into one of the news posts on our website, which will have the link to the recording when that's downloaded, and also we'll gather together relevant slides and these lists of resources, which I hope will be of use to you. So we've got all of 7 minutes, and I do believe in stopping these things on time because we're probably all zoomed out, especially this time in the morning. So if there are any points, I'm just scrolling back through just to see if there are any questions. Oh, you're being very generous. Thank you very much. Yes, people are very positive and very inspiring. So somebody had some questions. It was all about risk assessment.
There's a question about busking.
Thanks. About busking, where are we at? What's that?
I'm just sorry. It was right early on in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know if Gemma is still here, but Gemma earlier on when Paul was talking asked a question about local authorities and busking and what the situation was.
So Gemma and I had a little private chat.
Oh, did you?
In the chat, yes, we did. Obviously, lots of local authorities have different takes on busking at the moment. Gemma is based in Redbridge, so I've sent her information on the Busking London programme because busking is coming back in London. But again, it's all taking in all the relevant COVID-19 rules and regulations. But contact your local authority, or if you are based in London or want to busk in London, go to the Busking London website, and I can put that link into the chat for everybody if they're interested.
That's really useful. Thank you. Yes, we've had correspondence with some buskers and quite a few one-to-ones with them, and it's quite interesting watching. One of the really interesting things is how they're now managing audiences. That they're taking that to be part of their shows. Much of what we've heard before from other speakers today. And then the other thing, of course, busking often includes audience participation, which is a huge question. And it's quite interesting some of the schemes that are coming up among buskers of having. This is really weird. But how creative, of having a little pool of a bubble of buskers working together, and that those buskers become the audience participation in a kind of avatar form. So this is mad, creative, and could be kind of really interesting and a slightly weird, so that rather that you tell your stand-in avatar audience participation person what to do. Who knows if that'll work, but I kind of quite love that. Singing, yeah, singing. I've been going to the government website on that one. Singing and wind and brass instruments. One of my favorite companies that I used to work with regularly was a company called Les Grooms from France. Well, hey, they're not coming now, are they? And they're a brass band who improvise with the audience. So the government guidelines on singing are quite restrictive. We haven't got anything particular to add to that in terms of outdoor environments. We're keeping an eye on it. I'm sorry, that's not the most helpful thing. Anything else there? Anything else anyone wants to throw in? Great. Okay. Look, please stay in touch. You've got our information there. Drop us a line, info@outdoorartsuk.org. Myself, Catherine, or Reese, or Olivia are usually on that at various points. The next one of these, if it's useful, will be aimed more at artists, producers, and production teams who are perhaps more used to working indoors in other areas, and will be sharing advice with people who are thinking of moving outdoors. There's a lot of common ground with what we've covered today. But hey, thank you all very much. Thank you once again to all of our speakers for indeed being so positive and hopeful. It's been a very, very strange time for everybody working in the cultural sector and in all of our daily lives. And let's not forget, we've all got our lives to patch up at the same time. One really positive thing that certainly happened to us as an organisation was very, very early on in this, during the emergency funding. I've got to be honest, to my surprise and delight, the Arts Council came to this organisation with £500,000 of emergency funding support aimed directly at individuals working in this sector. And that was a recognition of the importance of this sector beyond this situation that I was so pleased to have on behalf of the sector, on behalf of my friends, colleagues, that was recognised so quickly. So that gives me my hope that indeed our funders understand that. And hey, it wasn't enough money, it never would have been, but symbolically, I take a lot from that. Thank you all so very much. We shall stop there, and it's been really good to see you all. And I hope do stay in touch, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you so much. Adios.